This is Success in Excess, where elite founders, lawyers, and clinic owners engineer success through strategy, scale, and systems. Powered by GrowthX.
Hey guys, welcome back to Success in Excess, the podcast where we spotlight the bold mindsets behind extraordinary success in law and beyond. I'm your host, Tarun Singh, founder of GrowthX, America's #1 law firm marketing agency for 2024 and 2025, delivering over, as of date, $120 million in results and helping ambitious law firms scale with precision and authority. Our guest today is a fierce litigator with decades of courtroom victories across Long Island and the NYC metro area. He began as a paralegal while finishing law school, and within 5 years of passing the bar, rose to junior partner and eventually becoming managing partner at Cohen, Jaffe, LLP. Known for landmark personal injury cases, particularly involving lead paint poisoning, Richard has secured hundreds of verdicts and settlements, many exceeding $1 million. He is an AV Preeminent Rated, a lifetime member of the $1 Million Advocates Forum, and speaks fluent Spanish and even serves as a volunteer EMT. I mean, this guy does it all. And not only does he do it all, he does it all very well. I mean, Richard is one of the top performing personal injury lawyers in the United States. He worked with tenacity, intelligence, and a vigor that makes everybody kind of quiver in the courtroom. Because at the end of the day, if he has a message to send to you, to the juries, and to the peers he has, I guarantee you he's going to get it done. Welcome, Richard. And Richard, it's great having you here, and I look forward to having a great and successful podcast with you today. Thanks, Richard. Hey, everybody. Our guest today is a fierce litigator with decades of courtroom victories across Long Island, the New York City metro area, and far beyond. He began as a paralegal while finishing law school, and within 5 years of passing the bar, rose to junior partner, eventually becoming manager partner at Cohen, Jaffe, LLP. Known for landmark personal injury cases, particularly involving lead paint poisoning, Richard has secured hundreds of verdicts and settlements, many exceeding $1 million. He is an AV Preeminent Rated attorney, lifetime member of the $1 Million Advocates Forum, speaks fluent Spanish, and even serves as a volunteer EMT. Please welcome Richard S. Jaffe. Richard, thank you for coming on the show. It's an honor to have you here, and I'd love to pick your brain today on how you built, scaled, and continue to grow such a successful firm like Cohen and Jaffe LLP.
Thanks so much for having me. It's really a pleasure. It's a pleasure to talk about my firm. I'm really proud of it. Thanks so much.
I mean, you've done a great job. You've come so far in the past couple of years. I mean, what you've done with your career, you know, we could be safe to say not only are you one of the top performing attorneys in the United States, but you definitely are in that top 1%. So tell us how, you know, things got started. We know that you started early off as a paralegal. How did that journey kind of transpire to becoming the powerhouse player you are today?
Well, I started in college, and I really had to work my way towards or through college. So I've always had a job. I guess having a job and having that necessity of working to try to afford things really was my motivating factor at the time. So I put myself through college, and then later I put myself through law school. And I sort of had a knack for Spanish, for languages, and I have no idea where that came from, but I started actually as a computer science major in college. And the thing was that there were no girls in my classes. So I didn't really enjoy it, you know, and, as a young guy that I am, and all the girls were in the Spanish classes. So I switched my major to Romance, Language, and Literature, where I started to refine my language skills, especially in Spanish. So then I said to myself, wow, I got to really sort of try to find a way to use my Spanish. And I started dabbling in the legal field. And I found that the Spanish community really needed somebody that understood the legal landscape, but, they also needed somebody to communicate with them. And they seemed to really appreciate somebody like myself who, although I'm not a native speaker, I at least made all the efforts to try to speak to them. And that really took down their walls of resistance, if you will. So I sort of found a knack with people, and it helped me relate to people. And I became a paralegal in a couple of law firms while I was working in college and later on in law school. And it took off from there. I developed a Spanish speaking following, and my love for personal injury really came from the fact that personally speaking, my family was affected by some medical malpractice issues, and I essentially caught the doctors lying, those who treated my father and those who treated my mother. And I felt helpless. I wanted to help myself hold somebody responsible. I wanted to hold somebody accountable for what these doctors did. Not only did they lie, but ultimately they really helped kill my mom and my dad. And so I was only imagining how other people felt about that. And I didn't want anybody to feel like that, especially people who spoke Spanish or another language and really didn't understand what was going on. So I eventually got into medical malpractice, and that was my door into personal injury. And I ended up here where I am today at the law office of Cohen and Jaffe. It was first the law office of Stephen Cohen, and that's my current partner. And I worked pretty diligently, went to law school at night, and I worked during the day. I put myself through law school, and I was able to really develop a relationship again with my current partner. And we created a practice that has been great for the both of us, our clients, and everybody who works here.
Huh. So so you started out as a paralegal. You were a paralegal for Stephen Cohen in the beginning and literally bootstrapped yourself all the way to the top. Now, one of the emphasis that you put on, your linguistic skills. Let's say you're a polyglot, right? You're good at languages. You know how to, talk the talk. And I think that's an important factor when you're being a personal injury attorney or attorney in itself. You have to know how to communicate and relate to your clients, and not just them, the jurors, the judges, the prosecutors. So how has being fluent in Spanish helped you in your practice? I mean, we know that New York City has a wide variety of people. It's a melting pot. You have Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, Colombians. Where have you seen the strengths lie in that aspect?
Well, I think you really have to understand all the fact that just because you speak Spanish doesn't mean that you can communicate with everyone who speaks Spanish. So there are different words for different things when you go to different countries. So that makes everything a little difficult sometimes in communicating. For instance, if you go to Puerto Rico and you want to say bus, the word is guagua. But if you go to another country, let's say Peru or Mexico, the word is autobus or omnibus. And, it's a little like here in the United States, where somebody will say, a hero is a sandwich, but somebody else will use the word hoagie or some other term that they have for it. But that only sort of captures the essence of what I'm trying to convey about language when you're talking to a particular client, because words have definite meanings, and you really have to understand what people are saying when they're relating their pain, their suffering, and what they're going through and who they're about. And because I could relate to people from different countries, even those who speak Spanish across different countries, I think I'll be able to better tell their story and better relate to a jury.
I have a client out in Los Angeles that runs a personal injury firm, that they only target a Hispanic population. I mean, that's their niche, right? And one of the things that we have come across, and I don't know if you guys can relate to this, is up until about 5 years ago, and this is what happened for them transition. I don't know if it's a national thing, but just a transition. ICE is a big thing nowadays. People getting arrested for immigration. So we had found that when targeting in the beginning these Hispanic populations, which are predominantly that's the only language they speak is Spanish. A lot of them did not know that they were still eligible to pursue personal injury cases, whether it's medical malpractice, auto accidents, slip and fall, employer related, because they thought, hey, my immigration status will be in jeopardy. So you saw a lot of those negligence, a lot of those realistically crimes committed upon them because of a lack of oversight or whatnot from that company get swept under the rug, because at the end of the day, they're too scared to call a lawyer and pursue, hey, this happened to me on the workforce, because if they lose their job, they get kicked out the country. If they try to pursue it, they got to go to court, they get kicked out the country. And we saw that, statistically, the research on how many of them believed they were going to go to jail versus not go to jail was something like 86%. 86% of them thought, hey, I can't do anything about this. And it's sad. It's kind of it's an injustice that happens. Like, have you seen did you see a kind of a flow and mindset like that also in New York City?
Absolutely. I try to really explain to people through my website and through podcasts and different presentations that I do, especially to people of the Hispanic community, is that regardless of their immigration status here in the United States, they have the same rights when it comes to personal injury as an American citizen. So it is really difficult to try to explain to them. And it's really difficult to try to help them overcome their fears. But certainly it's an important message to get across to the Hispanic community.
So in that aspect, another question to that aspect is, let's say there's somebody, immigration status may be in jeopardy, maybe not be in jeopardy. They have a personal injury case, whatever it may be. Let's say lead paint poisoning, medical malpractice, whatever the situation is. And let's say they go through the case and maybe they get deported, they get arrested for immigration related aspects, and they want a settlement or a verdict. But let's say if they're not in the country anymore, they got kicked out or shipped out. How does that work? And do they still get paid? Do they still get the settlement or verdict? Or is it kind of like, sucks for you?
No, absolutely. If I'm able to settle their case or recover it another way, certainly they are entitled to the money and they can get the money even if they're overseas. There's different ways to do it. We could wire it to a bank, we could wire it to another place, and there's also other creative ways to do it. You could even put the money on a credit card, to be honest with you, or something. I call it a credit card, but it's more like a debit
Right.
card, and get the debit card over to the person. But there's definitely many ways to make sure that these people actually get paid.
Huh. So that's actually, one of the most important things. And I think our audience needs to know that, because so many people are not given justice just for these instances. And, there's so many different similar instances. People are on probation, or maybe they're, you see it all the time. Maybe they're on the run from the law for a simple case and they actually have a real viable personal injury case. But instead of going forward with it, they're scared of all the other retributions that may happen for other things in their life. And you're being able to build that bridge with Cohen and Jaffe LLP, where people in this community, for all purposes, I don't want to call them ignorant, but less informed, are taking advantage of, because they don't know what they have a right to. They don't know that, there are certain laws in our country that protect them from being a victim and protects them from having this injustice put on them. And it's actually incredible what you guys are doing. As a paralegal, you bootstrapped yourself, you worked your way up to the top. You became junior partner in 5 years. And now you oversee a team of attorneys and support staffs. Like, it's just mind-boggling how somebody has done so much in such a short period of time. You come to question how. And I think that's what our audience wants to know. A lot of these guys, that women that are listening to this podcast, are fresh out of law school. Maybe they got 2-3 years of practicing under their belts, and they're saying, hey, I can make a lot more money. I only need, a tenth of the clients they have. And if I'm keeping all of it, it's more than I'd be making. But the question then goes, how would you tell somebody, you came from a paralegal, worked your way through law school at night, then became an attorney at the firm, and has been there ever since? How can we let our audience know that, hey, this is what you should do and this is what you shouldn't do, this is what you can achieve, and this is what I've done?
Well, it's okay. So that's a really big question. No, it's okay. I'm going to try to break it down a little bit. Okay. And I'm just going to focus on the personal injury world. I would say in the personal injury world, if you want to, quote unquote, be successful, and the definition of success lays within each individual, but you have to look at two parts. You have to look at, first, whether or not you're going to generate cases, meaning that you're going to be the originator, bring cases in, be the rainmaker, or are you going to be the trial guy? So it's sort of at the ends of the case where things get a little difficult and people kind of shy away from difficult things most times. If you want to make it, you have to meet these things head on. So you can be an originator of cases, or you could be a trial lawyer, and you're going to be, quote unquote, successful in most circumstances, depending upon what your definition of success is. So you have to run towards the hard stuff. And if you're not willing to do that, if you're not willing to focus, if you're not willing to sacrifice, then you're not going to make it. So it's really one end or the other, or both. I've rarely met somebody who can do both. I don't want to pat myself on the back and to be too egotistical, but I did, and it was a lot of sacrifice. And we're starting to talk about what the definition of success is. And I gave up a lot, and I didn't really have a good work-life balance. I didn't have a lot of balance at all. So I found out that I really couldn't do both. And now I find myself more of somebody who generates business rather than the trials, so I can get some more balance in the latter aspects of my, God, it's more than 3 decades of my career
3
now.
decades.
So you really have to concentrate, and you also have to understand that if you're going to generate cases, the answer really isn't advertise or broadcast your,
Everybody would do it.
broadcasting successfully really is not broadcasting. It's actually something that I call narrowcasting. If you want all personal injury cases, there's a lot of noise out there. How are you going to distinguish yourself? How are you going to say that I'm different? I'm the right guy for you? And the idea is not to broadcast with everybody else and be part of the noise, but separate yourself from the noise and narrowcast. So in my instance, for example, I narrowcast to the Hispanic community as opposed to everyone at large. That's just one example.
And you bring up a very important topic, right? Dilution. There's a dilution method that people love to follow. And when I am helping a client build his law firm, build his revenue generation model, just recently we had a client that came to us and he was generating anywhere. So signed cases, he was doing about 8 signed cases a month. And he wanted to ramp it up to 30 signed cases a month. And he's like, I have this company doing this. And he had probably around 30,000 a month in marketing going out. But 1,000 of it was in ads, and the other 29,000 was split up amongst like 12 different marketing companies doing a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit here, a little bit there. And the problem was nothing was taking effect or had impact because they were just so diluted. And change is good, especially in your business. Algorithms are changing. Things are changing all the time. For you to just do it in that one focus area, it's really ineffective. And when it comes to lead generation or client case generation, it's very important to narrow that focus down. So you're not going through a pile of 200 leads. You need to be able to identify that cost per acquisition and who are we looking to acquire. And for instance, you had the major lead paint case, right? Well, if you just targeted all personal injury, it would take forever to find that needle in a haystack. And when you get more specialized, like yourself, or like some attorneys that I know, we found in our experience, it's much better to get 100 qualified leads that all have viable cases that all fit your parameters and be able to convert 40 to 60 of them than to get you 500 leads. Only 30 to 20 of them are, let's say, even if they brought in 70 cases, like let's say 10 more than, the other method. The issue is all that time spent, all the effort spent, and all that recognition for your brand in areas and vectors that you don't really care about dilutes the gene pool and how effective your system will operate. So it's amazing that what you've done in taking that direction.
Well, I think if I may,
Yeah.
I think it even goes deeper than that, okay? Because there's certain things that you have to consider. First, when you're trying to get in cases, the first thing when you're marketing, okay, under the umbrella of marketing, you have 2 divisions. You have branding and you have advertising, and they're very, very different things. But it even goes before that, because your branding and advertising are going to be uncovered by your potential clients when they call you if you don't first take care of your own focus. And what I mean by that is you have to have your own mission statement, your own vision statement. And you have to really write these things down. What are your values? Because you'll get the call with advertising and marketing. You're going to get the call, but can you keep that call? And the only way you're really going to keep that call is if you explore yourself and you know the values that you're trying to communicate, that you live by, and you have these mission statements, vision statements, and that's what you really need to convey to clients. That's what they're really going to identify with, because with those things, with those tools, you are going to take your client that you just retained on a journey, and it has to be an intentional journey. And after your client is done with that journey, your client is going to be your best billboard, and there's no stopping you after that.
No, and you're absolutely right in that aspect. I mean, I personally believe when you're bringing a client on, and we get lost in this, especially in personal injury, it's contingency. Sometimes the bottom line is the most important, and that's perfectly fine because you're running a business model. But at the same time, you have to understand, pick and choose your battles, pick and choose the direction that you go with. So at the end of the day, you are synonymous in your approach. Every client should be treated number one. Every client should be treated of value, whether you sign them or not, whether it's contingency or not. Those efforts speak volume and allows a firm such as your firm, and such as, Cohen and Jaffe LLP. Like, the issue is you guys treat clients with care. You guys are actually focused not just on the bottom line billable hour contingency payout. You care about the person's well-being, what has been done to them, so on.
That's right. Well, I always remember when I have to call a new doctor if my insurance company changes or something like that. Somebody on the other side of the phone answers and you don't know who you're talking to. You don't know who you could trust. And then to have that person on the other side of the phone say, yeah, what do you want? Okay, I have an appointment for, 2 months out. And you're like, but I need help now. And I hate that feeling. It's such a helpless feeling. And you feel very vulnerable. And it gives me the yucks. So I never ever want anybody to experience that. Every client of mine has my cell phone. They can call me, email me, text me. I don't care what time it is. I don't care what day it is. If it's one of my biggest clients, to be honest with you, came in through Father's Day. I was in the middle of a Father's Day celebration, but she was so thankful because she couldn't reach any other
That's right.
attorney to help her. But I was there on that Sunday, and right,
Ready.
she refers a lot of business to me, and she's forever thankful. So you really have to be there for your clients, and you have to make them feel like you're the only client that you have. And you have to understand that it affects not only their client, but the people who love the client. So, these things, it's a little deeper than just, hey, I was in a car accident. It affects everybody different ways, and you have to understand that, respect that, and appreciate that.
You went from junior partner and within 5 years to managing partner of the firm. How does somebody do that? You have a lot of guys that are in big law, big firms, even smaller firms that 20 years in, 15 years in, they may been on partner track for 10 of those 15 years and they haven't really made it. And, where did you, Richard, find it in yourself, and what practices would you say led you to that position in such an exponential amount of time? Not exponential, my apology, such a speedy amount of time.
Well, as I was talking a little bit about before, I tried to stay true to myself. I had my own mission statement, my own vision statement, and my own values. And while I always had them, I really defined them when I wrote them down. And anything that I did during my work, I tried to always attach it to one of my values and make sure it related to my mission and vision statement. And then I said, why am I only doing this at work? Why am I so focused at work? And then I started to do this outside of work. And it really gave me a good feeling. And when you're focused like that and you have certain goals that are focused, things become a little easier and people start to follow you. And not only do people start to follow you, but the right kind of people. And when I say the right kind of people, it's the people who, when they're defining their values, really share many of them as you do.
Yeah. And that's what comes into high stakes litigation success. Being able to get in line, relate, familiarize, pretty much captivate an audience. And I think be doing that, whether it's personal injury, medical malpractice, even, lead paint poisoning, if you can't find a common ground with the person to move forward on, you're always going to butt heads. And that's one of the sales blunders that you see a lot of firms do, because you got these highly educated guys that are extremely proficient in what they do. When talking to their clients, either their clients feel dumb because they don't know what they're talking about, or they feel like they're being talked to or talked down to, like they're dumb. And you have to be able to relate all these industry, certain laws, certain applications, how this works for them in a very, very like child high school level, acceptance reading rate, because they don't understand some of these big things. They don't understand some of the clauses, or what does this law mean, or why is it spelled like this. So, you have to explain to them. And a lot of people don't want to take the time. And I think, what has been so successful for you is you value time, obviously, but I think you value your time with your clients because it allows you to be able to produce much better at the end of the day versus, a shot in the dark and hoping it wins. I think, from everything I've read, that's what makes you stand out in front of the crowd, But let me ask,
I always
go on.
Go ahead. Well, I was just going to say it all. If you ask any of my staff or anybody who I hang out with frequently, I always say it all comes back to basics. Okay, so we can't make things too complicated. I'm a person. I'm a human being. My clients are a human being, and that's why I don't wear a suit and tie when I come to work, especially when I meet clients, because they find it intimidating. And who needs intimidation? I also have a couch. You could probably see some of it in the background, but that's where either I sit or my clients sit. We never have a table between us, because if we have something between us, it's really a symbol that, there's something that separates us. I always like to try to relate to my clients in that respect and make them understand that I have a lot of the same values that they do. And I'm not there to take advantage of them. I'm there to help them to get their lives back together again after they've been in an accident, and keep continuing to pursue the values and their own mission and vision statements.
So, what mindset when handling these high stakes litigation cases, when handling clients, what kind of mindset and strategies have helped you win these tough cases, the high stake cases that, can potentially make or break a law firm?
Well, when you're on trial, your life essentially stops, and you have to live, eat, breathe that trial. You have to know everything there is to know about the trial, about your adversary, about their experts, about their witnesses. And you really have to be able to, you really have to want to sacrifice to achieve. I would love to say that I've achieved without sacrifice, but it's been, it's been quite the opposite. I have sacrificed a lot of time, and a lot of personal things to get the trial done. It's a big responsibility when you take on a trial, when you take on a client, but it's also a blessing because they trust you. And really, I feel an obligation to live up to that, to live up to their trust. I never want to betray trust, and so I'm going to give it my all, my best shot. That's my way of saying to the world, you're going to get the best of me. I'm going to give it all. And that has to be your mindset, that you are going to give it all no matter what. You are not going to stop ever.
That's a funny thing that you brought up. Very serious but funny, because in the intro, one thing I mentioned about you, Richard, is you're a guy that does it all, gives it all, and wins it all. And that whole tenacity, that hunger, that drive to push forward, it's also selfless, right? A lot of people could say, it's tied to money, but it's not. Richard, you have shown in so many different facets. I mean, you're a volunteer firefighter and EMT. I mean, nobody's, telling you to do these things, because I think your mentality and mindset is, shit, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. And I'm going to always do it right, because if I'm doing it, why waste my time and do something halfway? And in that same essence, we tell a lot of people, if you're going to do something, do it right or don't do it at all, because it's a waste of time, right? It's a waste of time. It's a waste of money. Just don't do the shit at all. You doing it halfway or 80% is not good enough in this day and age, because primarily most of the things that you do in this day and age, if you're going to do it right, you do it right. And if not, just let AI do it. But in your aspect, you're fighting for your clients, and you fight tooth and nail to the end. And that's why, we've seen you with such successes. You've grown so much in the firm. You've managed multi-million-dollar cases successfully. You're continued to grow, and you still find time to do the extracurriculars like a volunteer EMT. I mean, what more can you ask from the guy? Fluent in Spanish. I mean, if this was a dating show, they'd say you're the perfect catch, right?
I have good table manners too.
See, he's got it all. And then at the end of the day, you're running this firm, and I can just tell from your brain and your mindset, most guys that are at the point where they're managing a firm, they're thinking about being lead on cases, things of that nature. But you have that mindset, and you understand that at this point, you can't afford to be the bottleneck. Your job is to make sure that you have systems in place to bring more cases in, so the firm can expand and grow, where you can be replaceable. And being replaceable at this point is the next step for elevation for you. Because a lot of people, they get an ego thing where they think, if I'm replaceable, that means that my job isn't secure. But no, the only way you can elevate to the next level is by having somebody that can do your job, and then you can take on the next one and manage it all. And we see that traditionally, like when law firms go to sale, right? And, when I handled mergers and acquisitions, one of the common issues that we've seen, not just in law firms, were business owners were not replaceable. Your business is worth $10-20 million on paper, but in reality, you're the only person that can squeeze that business and make it. If a VC came in or another firm came in and tried to buy that business, they could only buy it on the contingency that you would stay around, because you're not replaceable. And you have that keen idea. And the crazy part is, maybe it's because it's your computer background, thinking very strategically organized like an engineer, because I know you didn't learn it in law school. I know that 100%. So, so what's the next steps for the firm? I mean, you're building, you're branding, you're expanding. What's the next step for you guys?
Well, listen, my goal is not to be the biggest, but my goal is to be the best. And when I say the best, I'm talking about internally and externally. I want the best for my employees. I want the best for my clients. I want the best results. I honestly would like to elevate the way that law is being practiced both in and out of the courtroom. And I say this because there's, again, a lot of noise out there. There's so many commercials about personal injury lawyers, medical malpractice lawyers. There's the guy screaming on TV saying, if you want cash, call me now. And if that's your thing, okay, call that guy. There's, other guys with different kind of things. I'm the biggest and, you should call us. If you want the biggest law firm, okay.
Do you want the
But if
best?
you want somebody who really wants to do things and do things right, and if you want to have somebody who is your voice, whose values match yours, and you want that lawyer to express who you are, what happened to you, what your story is, then maybe I'm your right guy. I don't have these crazy commercials on TV. I don't have these fancy schmancy cars running around with fancy wraps. And, I don't ride around in a limo. I'm just a normal guy who puts values on things that are different than many other attorneys. So I would like to continue with that notion and pass that down to my employees who will foster this even when I'm not around. It's a legacy. And I'm really honored by my staff because I think I have the best staff in the world. Not only do they work hard, but their hearts are in the right place and they do a lot of charity work. And, overall, they do a great job for the clients.
You touched on a very important factor and key point. What is important when it comes to this field and in any field? Are you the biggest? Are you the best? And how do these two match up? And it's that old adage, everybody brings a quality over quantity. Recently, like I said, our firm won for the second year in a row the best law firm marketing agency in the United States. And when I tell clients by performance, best performance, sometimes they take it back, and I tell them very clearly, we're not the biggest. We do not have 1,000 law firms that are currently our clients. But if you look at the numbers, if you look at the return on investment, the value per case, the amount of signed cases, the timeline projections, on every one of those metrics, we outcompete exponentially on performance. And in that aspect, a lot of people they think the bigger is better. And when it comes to a firm like yours, look at, I hate to talk bad about them, but look at Morgan and Morgan, biggest personal injury firm in the United States, just got fined because their two top star attorneys came into court to fight a case to win this case for their client off of chat GPT examples of case matter that never existed. Now, not only was the case thrown out, Morgan and Morgan were fined. And at the end of the day, who's really the victim in this again? And that's their client. Somebody like you that takes the ego away, that understands, hey, my job is to preserve justice and work for my client. That's your job. You're the counselor, you're the attorney, you're sworn to give them the best defense possible within your means and abilities. And again, you're their client. Like, you don't see doctors showboating, hey, I just changed this guy's heart, or something like that. So
Right.
being the best obviously is always the most important. Being the biggest, does hold its own weight in certain categories. But I think what you've done at the firm is it's very classy. It's very respectable. It holds a whole different type of weight, and, it comes off the tongue a lot better, and it gives you a mindset where, hey, I can trust these guys. I can have peace of mind, because that's what people want. They want peace of mind. And you give them that peace of mind because when you go into the courtroom, you're not looking at the cameras. You're not hoping somebody takes a TikTok when you step out of your car. You're not walking around with some, dime model piece paralegals with, your alligator briefcase. You're coming in focused on your client, focusing on the case, and making sure at the end of the day, your duty is done and done well. There's no amount of money that can substitute for that, especially when you're dealing with somebody in their hardest time. Personal injury, lead paint poisoning. I have a personal friend of mine that, suffered from lead paint poisoning, and great guy, but he's always had a mental health issue his whole life. And it was a lawyer that, fought for him. But at the end of the day, if he had a lawyer like you, I can tell you he would be in a better much better position. His mom at the time was poor and they settled for like $6,000. And he grew up in a house with lead paint, and he's been, and people in the same neighborhood, like, kid you not, in the same neighborhood with the same structured homes, same lead paint, same chemical levels, are getting paid out for the rest of their life. And this kid got $6,000 because some lawyer went in there to just sign a quick document and get him, one billable hour for $6,000. He made good money. And it's sad. I think people like that are
Unfortunately, that
needed
happens all the time.
all the time. All
Yeah,
the time.
yeah.
But how do you maintain that? Like, how do you make sure, what SOPs or institution, like beliefs do you institute into the firm to maintain from the bottom up, people are following those values?
Well, the firm does have, as I said before, the firm does have a mission statement, a vision statement, and some core values. And we also do have some standard operating procedures, like, when the phone rings, you have to answer it before it rings 3 times. Never let a phone ring more than that. Always return calls, always return emails, be courteous and always be thankful. And that list is actually put in a frame and it is hung up at every single desk of every single employee in my firm. So there's times we also use a program called Slack, and Slack is kind of like an instant message that goes across firm wide. And we have a channel on Slack that is called the value channel. And so when anybody does something or somebody sees something that somebody else does, and it's connected to one of our core values or our mission and vision statement, they post it in there and they say, hey, wow, I just saw, John return a call and was so nice to a client, and the client was very appreciative, and we'll post it in that channel. So we also kind of try to reinforce that. And also we have meetings every week. So the meetings are sometimes firm wide, sometimes they're team, sometimes it's just paralegal and attorney. But before every meeting, we talk about our mission statement, our vision statement, and our values. And we spend about 5-10 minutes talking about that before we do anything else. And I feel like it really helps because it keeps people focused, and it helps them the next day or the day after that to really relate and stay true to everything that we're about as a firm.
Well, okay. So you guys got it down to a science. I mean, I love that. You putting a framed image or picture on every single desk to remind people, hey, this is what we're working for. This is how we do. This is how we treat people. That's one of those things that people underestimate. Think, sending an email blast out every day with some things like that ingrained in your brain. And just in my essence, I write everything down in my notebook. You could send me an email draft saying, hey, do X, Y, and Z today. And maybe it's because I'm old. I don't know. I'll take the same message and I'll write it in my notebook. And for some reason, it sticks better with me. I have a whiteboard in my office where I can go to 50 different digital channels and they'll tell me the same stuff. But when I write it down and I look at it every day and say, okay, this is our funnel. This is my vision board. This is what I need to get done. It's not that I don't know. It's not that I need a reminder. It's that I need that constant in your face, presence saying, hey, this is why we're doing it. This is how we do it. And this is who we're doing it for. As we segue into the next part of the podcast, we want to talk more on the technicals, like the real breakdowns. You've grown the firm. How much, let's say in the past, let's say since COVID to now, how much has the firm grown?
Well, again, you're going to have to define growth. Are you saying that the number of clients is growth, or bottom line revenue is growth?
In your
or the value
opinion,
of
where
creation?
have you seen the growth that you value most?
I'm going to say I have seen people grow, and it's my employees that are the backbone of this firm. And without them, I would be nothing. And I'm very thankful to have them around me. And it's really nice to see their families grow, okay, because people have kids, and that's great. It's also great to see not only the staff, but also their family go through achievements, whether that's graduation of a school, whether that's in sports or any other aspect of their lives. So when you say growth, that's what I like. And I also see growth in the fact that not only does my staff have more life opportunities than they've ever had, but it's their families that also have more opportunities than they would ever have. So that's internal. Externally, I've thankfully had a lot of happy clients with a lot of good results. I've helped them get their lives back together. I consider that a lot of growth. And I would say as a business, I think we continue to get focused. I mean, it's never like something that we're a static law firm. We're always changing. We're more dynamic than static. And so we try to keep on top of things with technology, with advertising and marketing and branding, and the way we interact with people and even judges and court personnel. So there's always things that are changing. And I'm happy that we're able to not only keep up, what I feel like we're a step ahead of many other firms. And, we're out there doing our thing.
So earlier I asked you, how did you make such a dramatic leap from paralegal to managing partner? And you pretty much just answered the question, because your answer on what is growth and what does it look like and what has been the growth for your firm was answered like a true leader. Anybody can spout financials and say, hey, we brought in these many cases, this much value, this is growth. But the real leader will look at it and say, hey, my team's growth, not by size and the number of employees, but how has it been since when they came to Cohen and Jaffe? Have they been able to grow mentally, physically, emotionally, educationally? Have they become better people? Have they become better operators, better facilitators? Are they just better overall? Have you seen growth? You're looking at their families. You're looking at, the intangibles, the stuff that really matters. Because like I said, anybody can spout off some numbers and metrics, and yeah, it's great, but the impact you have on this world never has to do with money. It has to do about the people that you've affected. And the fact that you're growing a firm that, yes, obviously a bottom line matters. Yes, you're not doing it for free, but it's very rare to come across a leader like yourself that takes the ego away, right? Because never in that sentence did you mention, I helped them become this. I was the reason. No, you attribute most of the success to the teamwork, to the support systems that helped you guys get those cases, that helped you guys then handle those cases and win those cases. And truly, that's really said like a leader. And I think at that point, not only is your team blessed to have you as their leader, anybody that gets to interact with your business is blessed because they can benefit from the wisdom and the way that you carry yourself, which most firms don't do that. They have very strict SOPs, very strict practices and procedures. And it's not so much about letting people grow, it's doing what I tell you to do versus, I want to see what you think is best. I think also you're somebody that's open to, I wouldn't say criticism, but you're open to them coming to you and saying, hey, Richard, I think we could do this better, or we can try this, or this should be handled for the firm a little bit differently. And that open mindset allows you guys to expand exponentially. Well, a lot of guys that are closed off, they think they know everything. They think they're the best at it. They think that nobody else could say anything to them. And you see them get bottlenecked quickly, and that bottleneck starts to deteriorate because you're leveraging the power of multiples. They're leveraging the power of individuals. I mean, it's just amazing. I think the answer was beautifully done. Now, let's take it to a little bit of the technical aspect. And this is for the young guys, the young women out here trying to grow their own PI firm. They're in the space. You guys have obviously done SEO. You've done social media. You've done paid advertisements. You've done content. What are the current systems that you have in place that you can say as somebody looking to grow their personal injury firm from scratch or has been struggling for a couple of years to really find not your secret sauce, but what works, what doesn't work? Because I can tell you a lot of attorneys that I've met with, they're very hesitant about spending money on certain marketing efforts. But in reality, guys, and you know this better than anybody, your marketing, your cash generating efforts are the most important in your firm. Buying a new computer is support and fulfillment. Getting a new paralegal, support and fulfillment. That fancy office down in Manhattan, support and fulfillment. Your car doesn't really do much but take you to the office. I mean, all these things that people spend a lot of money on, even billboards. The reality is this: billboard recognition has gone down so much over the years. All it does is ingrain in somebody's brain that you exist and that you may be a top selection. But your paid ads, your SEO, your social media, those things actually bring clients into the business, bring cash. And it's always one of the things that they find it the hardest to put money up for. How have you guys, handled that vertical in the business? And where have you seen the best results?
Well, if I looked back, I would say that the internet has been great for us. That certainly has been a fantastic return on investment as far as advertising, strictly, marketing and advertising goes, and branding also. You could do branding through the internet.
Mm-hmm.
But as as we look forward, I think that you're going to see a trend away from SEO, to be honest with you. I don't think it's the answer because I think Google is really, it's catabolic, it's digesting itself. Everything is going to be AI.
Certainly.
And I don't even know if our children or maybe our children's children won't really know what SEO actually is, because I think it's going to be non-existent in maybe a couple of decades. But it's all artificial intelligence these days. And if you're going to go on Google and it's going to spit out some artificial intelligence results, then why am I really doing SEO? It really has to be something you're going to have to try to jerry rig the computer another way. So I think you're going to see a change in marketing, branding, and advertising. And that's why I always say it starts with yourself. Always goes back to basics. You have to have within yourself some core values, mission statement, vision statement, and that's what you have to brand yourself with, and that's what you have to advertise. So I think it's going to go back to basics, meaning handshakes, networking, maybe TV, but I think it's going to go back to the old-fashioned way, and people are going to start getting away from SEO.
And in that aspect, I won't say I fully agree with you, but I see your vision, and I agree in the sense that Google is becoming catabolic. It was great, coming out with Gemini, coming out with ChatGPT is a great tool. It's taken over the world. But one of the core functionalities of Google as a search engine is to be a engine built on trust for searchabilities and effectiveness. Now, like you said, if I can type in the best personal injury firm near me and the chat GPT can cite all the best ones in my location, find which one I need and tell me, hey, what I'm looking for, well, then that system itself is going to be dominant. And as we generate more, and if we've seen a cycle in the past 4 years, right? First, AI started coming about, people started automating social media posts, content started getting diluted with garbage written from the computer. Like every post on LinkedIn now there's no personality. And by personality, I'll tell you this. I much rather receive an email from an attorney that has grammatical errors and maybe sloppy writing and no formatting than some chat GPT spit out, there's no character in it. There's no depth. There's no volume. It sounds like a perfectly written computer message. And from there, we segued from the post to now automatic images. But if you've seen, now people are going into the videos. And it started out with the automated animated videos and the videos like the pixels and stuff. But now it's going straight back to you and I on video talking to each other, having a real conversation. Yes, we can't get past the point that we can't teleport to each other's location, but it's coming more and more personal. If you look at people's websites, there's more and more blogs that are vlogs where it's them talking on the screen and saying, really explaining things. And there's no scripting and there's no, proper format. Hey, how are you doing, sir? Today's lesson is going to be on statute code 4.345.
Right.
It's got to be personal because there's so much out there now that what stands out is you. Because anybody can write the same prompt into the system, be in the same area, offer the same services at the same time in the same court to the same type of clients. And generally, whatever they spit out is going to be 95 to 100% the same. But if we get Richard Jaffe on the screen talking to us about his real experience in personal injury, how he's handled cases, how he treats his clients, how his firm operates, you can't replicate that 95 to 100%. It's going to be vastly different, and that's what makes you stand out. That's what's going to make everyone stand out. I tell a lot of my clients now that 95% of firms have not integrated AI into their systems. And law firms are always the last to transition into new technologies because they just get stuck in their ways. They think they know how to do it right, so they keep on doing it until everybody in their mama has changed over, and now they're like, okay, we should try AI. You can automate the firm from A to Z that you need to. The work that you need to do, though, needs to be done by a human. And stop, I hate the laziness in some aspects. I think SEO is going to be less and less important, AI and personality combined. So when you combine the human experience with the AI experience for just efficiency is going to be the best way to operate. And it's evident in today. If you look at the numbers, agentic keyword optimization has more, not just searches, because you can't relate to searches. Searches are always going to be, for at least the foreseeable future, dominated through Google search. but interactions and engagement, right? More and more people are taking the data from AI and acting on it and using the data from SEO to gather what it does, data. I'm going to look it up. I'm going to find the guys, but when I'm making my decision, I use AI to make that decision. And that's, one of the aspects that we've seen. We've seen that in ads, and we've seen that, across the board, ads, content, SEO, social media. If you're combining the two, you're doing it right. Now, one of the topics that I want to bring up with you as we come to the end of the podcast is something that's a little bit more specific. You guys do personal injury, but you guys also have a hyper focus. You guys are handling medical malpractice, lead paint poisoning. You're handling some serious cases, and not even just serious, it's very specific niches. What would you suggest to an attorney or a firm looking to, you have the broad scape personal injury, but if you're targeting something like, class actions or a mass tort for lead paint in the city, or something related to, let's say specifically motorcycle accidents, right? How would you structure that system to make sure that you're the one that stands out in front of the crowd and really getting that granularized focus?
Well, I really think that when you're going to talk about success in that aspect, it's going to be at the crossroads of talent and your willpower. So you can have the talent, but not doing anything with it, for example, or you can have the willpower, meaning you can be driven, but not have the talent. And either of those two combinations, you're not going to be successful. But when those two things cross, man, you're going to just go sky high. So you got to find first what you're passionate about. And that could be something like a hobby. For instance, I ride motorcycles. I love riding motorcycles. And, one of my niches is motorcycle accident cases. That's, something that I do. And when I'm passionate about it and I feel like I have a talent in the legal world, and those two things are crossing, then I'll be successful at it. In fact, I've had some great motorcycle accident case results, and people come to me when they have motorcycle accident cases. So I think you really have to marry those two. I think that's really the secret to to anything. I don't think it has to do with just talent. I don't think it has to do with just drive, but where those two things meet.
And when those two things meet, you're able to combine the two expertise that you bring. And passion is one of the biggest things. I honestly believe if you love what you're doing, you're going to do it even better. Not saying that if you don't love it, you can't do it well, but it's just that much better that you can actually handle it, how much further you can go with it, which really makes the difference. Because, guys, at the end of the day, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. If you can't grind it out day in and day out, and take the cases you don't like. Yes, there's going to be cases that interest you, but there's going to be a lot of cases that, is not interesting. They may be heart wrenching. They may just be something that doesn't matter to you, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't matter to your client. And that's where the real focus needs to be. Richard, what has been some of the challenges? You started out as a paralegal, you worked your way all the way to the top of the tippity top. So what are some obstacles that you overcame, and what are some of the life lessons that you learned along the way that can help some of our future attorneys or firm founders or top performers hopefully avoid if they listen?
Wow. Okay. Well, that's a pretty big question. I would say that, if you're going into personal injury, prepare yourself to be in the poorhouse when you start out for at least 3 years. And that means getting a line of credit. So go to your bank, make friends with the bank, and get a line of credit, because you're going to be in the poorhouse. Because when a personal injury case walks into the door, you have to understand that you're not making money at that time. It's only when that case settles, and you really have to do right by the client. Don't try to settle that case early to get some money for yourself. So make sure that you think ahead, get a line of credit, and prepare the people who you love that you're going to have to sacrifice in those early years. It's going to be painful, but if I said, will you sacrifice 2 years? Will you be in financial pain for 2 years if that gives you 40 years of a life that you really want? Probably most people are going to say, yeah, I'd do it if I could just get through. So make sure you define the light at the end of the tunnel, and, be realistic with yourself, be true to yourself, and make sure that the people around you are those who respect your goals in your endeavors.
That's very well said. You're going to be in the poorhouse in the beginning. I know a lot of guys that have started firms from scratch, specifically personal injury guys, because disbursement isn't, like you said, just because you took on a case doesn't mean you're getting paid. You don't get paid until there's a settlement or a verdict. Disbursement takes a while. And in that aspect, you have to be prepared. Put your ducks in a row, make sure you're ready. Prime example, if you look at Richard, he did what he had to do, and look at where he's come. I mean, the system works. It's not like you're going out. I mean, it's a risk personally, but if you can go into a business model, it's one of the most solid business models you can go out there. And because people will always get in accidents. People will always have problems in surgeries. People will always have problems at the workplace. There's always that's life. People live, people die. Some die short, some die young. People get hurt. I mean, that's just one of those things. It's like kind of like criminal defense. Criminal defense is a little bit less money, but it's a little bit more consistent in the bidding. But the thing is, people are always going to go to jail. They're always going to commit crime. That's never stopping anytime soon. So if you do it right and you follow the steps from a guy like Richard, who's not only one of the best attorneys in the United States, but really knows his shit. He knows what he's doing. He knows this from the in and out. I mean, he could probably do it blindfolded, go into court and fight a case blindfolded and still win because it's ingrained in who he is. It's his identity. It's his id. You talked about legacy and growth. You talked about passing down the institutional models that you guys have built over here at your firm, making sure that the younger employees that are future partners have that instilled in them. What's your personal growth and legacy, Richard, for the future?
As far as what I want to grow into, is that
Kind
really
of
what
like
you're asking?
where do you see yourself in 5, 10 years?
Hopefully with a loved one who is hanging out by the pool at my house, and I am barbecuing on my favorite outdoor barbecue, some really good food. I happen to like barbecuing tuna steak
Really?
and salmon on cedar planks.
Wow.
And a really nice steak, maybe a ribeye or a fillet, and having several motorcycles in my garage that I could take out whenever I want and go out for a nice ride and enjoy life that way. And whenever I can, I would like to teach and show people the mistakes I made so that they don't have to make them and they can live better lives. And of course, I want to see my loved ones be happy and healthy in their pursuits as well.
This is a man that has a well-rounded life, full of success. He's got it all. Unfortunately, I haven't had lunch yet, so I'm extremely hungry after that and that well-plated menu that you put in my mind. But yeah, tuna steak, salmon, ribeyes. I mean, I could go for it all. And the thing is, that's what life's about. Working hard, being able to be blessed, be around your family, build it up, make an impact on those in your life, make a positive impact. Nothing did Richard say in that is, I want to have $1 billion or I want to, have a plan. And the reason is because this is a man that's not only just confident in who he is, but he knows where he wants to be. He knows where he's going, and he knows that what he's doing internally is right. And this is what we look for in our top performers. This is why the podcast is Success and Excess, because success is measured in so many different variables, and it's the men like him that measure it with the intangibles, with the bounties of life like family, food, relaxation, peace of mind, and simple thing. I mean, he wants motorcycles in his garage. Now, speaking of motorcycles, what's your favorite type of motorcycle?
Well, right now I have a really nice 24 Harley Davidson Road Glide, but I need some other ones. I need something I need an ADV bike, and I have my eye on a really nice BMW bike. So, but I don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon. Just trying to get the ride again.
Remember, guys, he needs it. BMW's got a nice one. I have a cousin that has a Ducati. It's very lightweight and small, but I mean that engine goes. I mean, it's a speed demon. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you could definitely I mean, I'm not going to say that I personally have gone beyond the speed limit, but others who allegedly may have told me that such Ducati motorcycles are very fun.
Yeah, I heard the torque on it itself, like, I mean, you got to kind of be like on that. I mean, the torque itself, if you rev it, like you could probably, I don't think you'll snap your back, but I mean, there's so much torque in that bike where, yeah, it's a beauty. I think,
Yeah.
that's the luxuries of life, man. As we wrap this up and we look ahead, your future is beautiful. It's blossoming. You've done so much in this field. if he won all the awards, I mean, look at his wall. I mean, he's got every single diploma, accomplishment, achievement. He's got Lawyer USA in the back. I mean, this is a man grounded in success. And the best part, he's earned it all. He's worked his way, to the top, and he's humble about it. That's the best part. He doesn't need a flash because he knows who he is. And that's what this whole podcast, that's what life is about, right? He's really defining and changing the beliefs and the definitions of what a personal injury attorney is, because let's be real, for a long time they didn't have the best name. And that's just stereotypes. Guys like him is what makes the industry worth fighting for, worth out there. People think it's all about chasing money. It's about fixing people's life problems with the only unit of measurement that we have, which is obviously money. But it doesn't help when a child is lost, or you lose a leg, or you lose an ability in one of your senses, or lose a life. What we can do, they do. And Richard, we love the service that you've given to your clients, given to your people, and the fact that you're out there. You're even an EMT. I mean, you literally are out there to help the people in every way possible, and it's just it's an honor to have had you on the podcast. It's an honor to be speaking with you. I think that I have yet to come across an attorney as well versed and as versatile and have so much depth as yourself. So thank you for coming to the show.
Thank you very much for your kind words. They're really appreciated. I'm grateful. I'm a little embarrassed. I guess I feel pretty humble right now, but thank you very much.
No,
Thank you.
you're good. Well, so let's get to the nuts and bolts of it, right? If somebody's currently dealing with a personal injury problem and they're in the New York City area, right, and they need a firm like yours, where can they find you guys?
Well, let me just say, if you have any kind of problem, okay, I that's what I practice. I practice personal injury law. But if you have any kind of problem, call me anyway, and I'll try to help you. And if I'm not the guy that is the best for the job, I'm going to be honest with you and say I'm not the guy. But I could probably refer you to somebody who I know to be the best. So you can call me for any problem. But if you need to get me, you can get me one of several ways. You can go online at CohenJaffe.com. That's CohenJaffe.com. You can call my firm, 16350, or you could email me, and my email is attorneymedic@gmail.com. So attorney like I am, and then medic like paramedic @gmail.com. Or and I'm going to be bold here, but if you want to call me, you can always reach me on my cell phone, which is 917-273-2677. That's my personal cell phone, and I always have it in reach, and you can call me anytime.
Guys, so you got it all. You got the nuts and bolts. You got it from Richard. And remember, if you check the description below, we'll have all his contact information for him and his firm. They do specialize in personal injury, but like Richard said, if you have any problem, reach out to him. The guy is here to help you. I mean, he probably, like I said, he's the best of the best in his field, and he's probably shaking hands and knows all the other guys that are the best of the best in their field. He's a resource to have. He's a top performer. When in doubt, reach out to Richard. Cohen and Jaffe LLP. These guys are the cream of the crop, the best of the best that do it. Reach out to them. The description is in below. If you like today's podcast, please subscribe, leave a comment, leave a like. And if you're looking to scale your firm, if you're looking to really grow in 2025, bringing AI into your business, looking to expand your firm into a scalable and sustainable model, you can reach us at growthxmarketing.ai, and our descriptions are below. But until next time, guys, remember, stay smart, scale smart, and focus on the big picture at hand. Life isn't about money. Life is about life. Thank you, guys. Have a great one.
Take care.
Thank you. So we'll edit this out. So the next part.
Yeah, don't hang up yet because it's uploading.
Yeah, no, I know. I know how it works.
Oh, okay. Because sometimes it takes a little bit to upload, and
yeah,
I don't want to lose the recording for you.
No, so the next steps is so my assistant's gonna send over the request for the headshots and all the socials and whatnot, so we can tag it in the pre-podcast.
She already has it.
Okay, good.
Already has it.
So she has that. Then we'll give you the calendar for the actual episode drop, and only next part is that obviously We usually do this. There's no obligation, but if you'd like, we'd like to invite you to a discovery call for Cohen and Jaffe, see what you guys are currently doing. I know you mentioned AI systems into the firm and really growing that whole firm aspect. How many actual active attorneys you guys currently have?
Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I'm gonna say.
And is it all basically personal injury related? Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome, great, great. And you guys pretty much all over Long Island and just New York, Suffolk?
Long Island and New York City metro area.
Okay. No Suffolk, none of those areas?
Well, Suffolk County is Long Island.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So Suffolk County, Nassau County, and the 5 boroughs.
Okay, gotcha.
So Queens, Kings, Brooklyn is Queens. I mean, look at me, I can't even talk anymore. But yeah, the 5 boroughs in Nassau and Suffolk.
Okay, got you. Okay. I mean, I'd like to invite you to a discovery call. Like I said, you kind of know what we do. We're a revenue accelerator, so we really take the whole concept of, looking at the firms. Not only you're just like bringing your cases in, right? Because cases, is a very important part of it. But the whole revenue acceleration model is, how do we take you and build a roadmap? Let's say if you guys are doing, I don't know, let's say you're doing $10 million in annual revenue, right? After everything, what does that look like, and how does the firm achieve 15? And what does that roadmap look like beyond just generating cases? Like, we specialize in generating cases, but your GEO parameters, your SEO parameters, your social media parameters, what are the ROI? Where's the revenue generating actions in the firm? And how does that look in application to what you guys are currently doing? And what are your current systems, metrics, performance, and where can it be improved on if there's improvement? What's your thoughts?
Well, I'm not against it. So, so we'll do some follow up emails. I'll get some information from you. Maybe we can set something up.
Sounds like a plan. Well, like I said,
All
Richard,
right, man.
I appreciate your time today. I think it was a great podcast. I really love what you're doing at the end of the day. I think you're very well rounded. I think you're humble. It brings a versatility. A lot of the guys that, usually come on here, they got the 3-piece suits and they're all, the standard, personal injury guy that you would think of. And it just kind of gets
Yeah.
boring,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I don't know. I did that for a while. I didn't like it.
Yeah, I mean, because that's, you got to be.
I'd rather be riding my motorcycle.
Well, you enjoy that. It's a beautiful day. You have a great day.
Take care, man. Watch your tail out there, Cal.
Thank you, brother. Have a good one.
Bye.
Own your growth. Scale with systems powered by GrowthX.